I have just driven right through the middle of the terminal and out the other side.
What?
Right, so here we are today then. This is Derek from FS Pro and also Gear Down 3 Greens. Would you like to introduce yourself, Rich?
As I say, it depends on what criminal implications there are. But I'm Rich from Flight Sim 481 and also Gear Down 3 Greens.
Awesome. So today, what we're going to try to do is to start from nothing and install the Aerosoft Airbus A318-A319 and LogMeIn Hamachi to get us to the point that we can try and make use of the Connected Flightdeck feature in Aerosoft Airbus.
Can I just ask you a question there, by the way, Derek?
Oh, it depends. Am I able to answer it?
I don't think you are. I'm just wondering, just how many times have you installed the Airbus A318-319 trying to get this to work?
It has been more than a few, I have to say, but less than 10.
So I'm going to have my fingers and toes crossed that we can do this once in a one-off in such a fashion that it appears viable to do it without destroying what willpower you have.
Well, let's make a promise to our poor, unsuspecting viewership that if we do make a cock-up and have to cut and resplice the video, we'll be honest and say that we had to do that.
Yes. Well, what we can always do is make sure that we include the time and date in the bottom of the screen, potentially so they can see how many weeks it's taken. I've got every confidence in us managing to install this first time.
Have you really?
Problems. No.
Glass
but
half
we'll
full
have
kind
a
of a guy. Let's do that then. So I've got my install dialog up on here. Ask me for language, English United States. Let's go. There's no option for English United Kingdom, which I'm a bit bummed about.
I'm always miserable about that.
Yeah. What's up with that? Okay.
Right.
Some virus scanners give false positives. I haven't suffered from that with AVG, which I use for my antivirus stuff.
I use AVG okay as well, so we'll see how we get on. I have to be honest, considering it's free, I quite like it.
Yeah, I do. I think it's excellent.
Some virus scanners, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to do what most people do, I think, and I'm going to ignore all the warnings.
Yes.
Because that's what I do, and I think that's what a lot of people do, is you just click through things, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if it breaks, it's all your fault. Registration is successful. So let me just close that window down.
And I'm being asked if I want to install FS to Crew RAAS, a version lock to these aircraft, and I'm going to select yes. Oh, and now I'm being asked, do I want to restart my computer now? So I'm going to select no, wait for you to finish your bit, and then I guess we're both going to have to do a restart when you get there.
Configuring my new software installation.
Wow.
Again.
Yes.
Do I want to install RAS? Yes.
So now that we've done the installation of the Aerosoft Airbus, our intent here is to download and install LogMeIn Hamachi, which should provide us a virtual packet network or virtual private network, a VPN, allowing our two computers, albeit spread hundreds of miles apart on the wonderful internet, to connect so we can make use of the Connected Flightdeck feature in the Aerosoft Airbus.
Can I just explain my understanding of that? It's a witchcraft program that allows computers to talk.
It kind of
my
is.
Understanding is, as a non-techno guru, that's literally my understanding is that this is a program that you run and it manages to get two computers to talk to each other.
Whatever works. One of the great phrases I've used, and they use this with networking as well, and I'm no expert on networking by any stretch of the imagination, by the way, but they use the phrase tunneling. So if you imagine that between my computer and your computer there is this tunnel that somehow has got an all-protective steel and concrete mesh all around it to stop those nasty hackers and viruses getting in and messing around on our network, that's essentially what we're trying to do with Hamachi and the VPN.
Groovy. That makes a lot of sense to me now.
Excellent.
I love the idea of tunneling.
Well, especially for me as well, ex Air Force, we were very good at tunneling in the 40s.
Not so great in the Navy.
No, a bit watery. It's a bit like trying to build a basement if you've got a house in Florida. Not recommended.
No.
Okay, LogMeIn Hamachi. Try it for free is the button that's here, so let's try that. You need to sign up for this. I've already done this, of course. I've downloaded the installer. That's the bit
Are you on the actual LogMeIn Hamachi screen, are you, in terms of the Tinterweb?
That's where I went first of all. That's right, to show where the people can get it from free of charge. With that done on my machine, I'm going to close that page down now and go over to my Hamachi MSI. Now, Hamachi, or the download that you get for LogMeIn Hamachi, is an MSI file, which is fantastic because this means we don't have to worry about running it as an administrator or anything. Because it's an MSI file, an MSI format, we can just run it and not worry about any of that security stuff.
Cool. I'll go with what you said.
Although, having said that, I've double-clicked it to run it, and I've now got a warning that says, do you want to run this file?
No, I just randomly clicked on it.
Yeah, I accidentally double-clicked on it.
Computer.
Okay, language selection, English. That looks good for me. Let's go. And next.
Click. It wants to put it in C Programs x86 LogMeIn Hamachi.
Yeah, it seems reasonable to me. I'm going to leave all the default settings. I am going to create a shortcut on the desktop because I think that's a good idea.
I didn't do a separate folder for it, so I'll just go with the default and accept what it says.
Yeah.
I can't remember because obviously we created it before, see how it worked. I can't remember if I installed it in a separate folder or not, or just accepted what it told me was a good idea.
Well, it's a good test.
I tend to stick a lot of things on my hard drive because I've got an SSD, but rather than fill that up, I tend to install a lot of software on the hard drive instead. Mm-hmm. Right. It says launch it or reboot to complete installation.
So you've got to reboot yours, have you?
Well, it's got launch me, but it's grayed out. I can't reboot it.
Oh, good.
It's just teasing me.
Because mine didn't need to be rebooted. It just asked me if I wanted to launch it. I've selected yes. LogMeIn Hamachi has launched. And it's now showing the network that we had created before. That's the FS Pro UK network, because we had saved our configuration when we uninstalled it before reinstalling for this video.
We had indeed. We're cunning creatures.
Careful how you use those kind of words. So the creation of this network and who you add into that network is all really well covered in the Aerosoft instructions, and indeed if you want it in more detail, it's available with the LogMeIn Hamachi instructions and on their forums as well. So I don't know, did we want to try and create a different network?
Yes, I think if we can run through creating a second network just to show how it works. Happy days.
Good stuff. Okay, so on my system now, with LogMeIn Hamachi showing on the main screen, I'm going to click network and create a new network. So the network I'll create for this, I'll do GD3G. That was difficult, wasn't it? Well, use our super secret password that only you and I know, Rich, and which you always have difficulty remembering.
We've just discovered passwords are not my strong point, haven't we?
Oh, yeah, in a very major way.
In a very major way.
Yeah, so do make sure that you share that password. Okay, so that network has now been created here. That's groovy. And now what I need to do is
What I need to do is also try and join an existing network. So
precisely.
I need to know the name of your network ID.
It is Golf Delta 3 Golf.
Is it capital letters or not?
It is. It's all capital letters I've used.
And let's see if I can remember the super secret password.
Otherwise, it's back to the edit for me.
Hey! First time.
Well.
Look at that. Boom.
Well, that's interesting. You've appeared now on both of the networks. So, yeah.
Yes. Interesting.
And with the same IP address.
Well, it's on the same computer, so that doesn't really surprise me. However, if I right-click FS Pro UK, what happens if I click Leave Network there? I can click Leave Network there, and it still gives me GD3G.
Yep, so you're only on the GD3G network now. Yep, and I'm not on the FS Pro UK network either, so as far as this demo is concerned, the FS Pro UK network is no longer in the game.
Yep.
Good, excellent. So with that done, let's minimize Hamachi out of the way. And I think...
Is it worth pinging just to make sure we've also got information?
An excellent idea.
Because obviously we had the issue with... and it pings first time, look at that.
Yep, there we go, pinging first time from here as well. So let me just show our poor beloved users or viewership the problem that I had before. Yes, all two of them. And that would be your mother and my mother, no doubt.
That's me and you at this point.
In that case, I'll remove the word beloved from my earlier statement. Right. So what do I want to find? I want to find the firewall, and I want to look at Windows Firewall with advanced security. I want to look at the inbound rules. And here on the inbound rules, there is an option for file and printer sharing. Now this file and printer sharing is what will enable pinging on your network. And because of the way that we've set up the networks, what I've done is taken file and printer sharing echo request for private profile and enabled that. By default it was disabled on my system. I've enabled that, and doing that allowed you to be able to ping my computer. And that was it. And in those with those short few seconds, I've encapsulated what took us, was it 3 hours to fix first time round, Rich?
Yes.
Oh, dearie.
It works. Woohoo!
Yeah, hooray. Okay, so we've tested that. We have pinged. That's all good stuff. Is it time to fire up FSX?
It is indeed.
Let's do it.
The excitement is there. I'm in anticipation of it. Let's fire up FSX and see what we get.
Well, I've got a nice splash screen.
I've got a password. It's a different one to my others, but I've remembered it.
A password for Flight Sim?
Yeah, for Steam. My Steam login.
Oh, okay. So mine does that automatically, so I don't have to worry about that.
Automatically, hark at you.
It sounds better than it is. Okay, so current aircraft I want to choose. The Airbus A319 in Lufthansa livery. When it eventually gets there.
I'm still waiting for Flight Simulator to load.
Oh, joyous day. There we go. Airbus A319 Lufthansa livery. We're going to be locating ourselves.
I do have it trying to use Ultimate Traffic 2 as well, but at the moment it's just staring at me with a nice little egg timer.
Which parking were we on last time? I can't remember, Rich.
I think it was...
Shall I wait for you to catch up and then...
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, well, if you choose a parking...
Okay.
And when my system eventually decides that it can be bothered, there we go. There we go. I get my lovely background music. Let me just go to my sounds and my mixer and turn FSX right down, because otherwise it overpowers everything else.
So I'm thinking S Parking 1 ramp GA large.
GA, General Aviation, with an Airbus A318, 319.
Well, I make that choice on the basis that there is no choice other than General Aviation for the ramps at Innsbruck, believe it or not.
Oh, at Innsbruck.
Mm.
Right. Interesting point. I don't know if you've noticed that the Innsbruck scenery has no yellow line for taxiing to the terminal. Have you noticed that?
I either have not noticed it or I do have it. I'm not sure which of the two is true.
Parking 5 ramp GA small or parking... Which one are you on?
S Parking... I'm not on any of them yet, but S Parking 1 ramp GA large.
S Parking 1 ramp GA large. I will select that as well. It's an interesting thing, purely out of the fact that Innsbruck in real life, to the best of my knowledge, does not have any yellow lines to taxi to the stand.
Ah.
It's all blank because it's all marshalled parking with follow me trucks and everything.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Just before we go on any further with that, though, current time and season, I'm leaving at the current time, which I've got as 11:19. Let's just change that and reset that to current time 11:22. Because we thought that might have been a problem with some of our other stuff later on, didn't we?
Yes, mine. I haven't got mine set up so that it automatically loads with local time. Sorry, it automatically loads with local time, but as soon as I move an airport, because I've got it set up with a default load of that Creation Airtrike somewhere near a Caribbean island or wherever it is.
Yeah.
As soon as I move to, say, Europe, I end up having to change the time anyway, but that's...
Actually, that reminds me of one of those tips that I sometimes find for FSX, because it used to annoy me that when I would try and load up FSX and fly an aircraft in the UK, for some reason the date and time was set to some, like, I don't know, early hours of the morning or something. And eventually I discovered that to get it to default to whatever time zone you want, change the default setup for when you load FSX to be an aircraft in the time zone that you want it to be. So I load the trike up at Bristol Airport, for example. So now every time I start up FSX, it defaults to UK time, which is perfect.
But that also in itself includes a point which is very highly recommended by a lot of the developers and on a lot of the websites. For those who aren't aware, you often get problems in FSX switching between complex aircraft. So one of the things they recommend is always load FSX initially with one of the default aircraft, because they're incredibly simple, and then when you load a complex aircraft over the top, you generally don't get any conflicts or issues.
Yes, very true.
So although I have the Airtrike selected for my load up screen, generally I still have the default location. So but the only thing with that then as well is the default location is very gentle on memory usage.
Yep.
So
that is true, of course,
and
where I've got it set to Bristol, that's an add-on airport, which is quite heavy on memory usage. Just for the delight and edification of our viewers again, I've loaded up my Airbus now. It has, of course, by default got its own fly-out view windows set, but I've also got EasyDock installed on my system, and even though I had uninstalled the Airbus, when I reinstalled it, EasyDock is making use of those same entries. So EasyDock has got all my configuration for the Airbus set up again. But before I can use it, I need to turn off the standard Airbus views, which is the first thing I'm going to do now on the First Officer's MCDU.
Well, at the moment I'm still loading terrain now, so I'm obviously a little bit behind you.
Okay.
But I'm primed with my control full stop, control period.
Oh yeah, get ready for that.
Its initial Airbus lurch forwards. I wouldn't want to be a ground handler.
It's a very short lifespan, isn't it?
Not only Does a massive, great big Airbus spontaneously appear in front of you, but it also lurches forwards 10 feet with its engines running. That would be quite a terrifying experience, if somewhat supernatural.
Yeah, you couldn't exactly stop it by putting your hands out in front, could you?
Always amazes me how small an aircraft chock is compared to some of the aircraft.
Exactly. Actually, yeah, I'm on the hard standing. And you're absolutely right. There are no taxiway markings here. Equally as wonderful and exciting is that universal traffic has worked because there are some nice aircraft parked next to me here on the apron. I'm just not getting the music when it loads, which is delightful on two counts because that music is annoying.
Isn't it just?
Oh, yes.
If you bear with me 2 minutes, I'm just going to reset everything.
Okay.
Which, to be fair with EasyDock, doesn't actually take that much time.
No. Now, while you're doing that, I'll just mention that we have deliberately, of course, made an error here in that we have set up LogMeIn Hamachi, we've got the tunneling working, we fired up the Airbus, but the one thing we have not done yet is to do some configuration that's very necessary for the Airbus on my computer and the Airbus on your computer to work, which is to declare the IP address of the computer we are trying to connect our flight deck to. So we'll do that in a minute when Rich has finished faffing about with EasyDock.
Whoa, easy, Tiger. So there we go, I'm done.
Super.
Right, let me go to my right-hand MCDU.
And you want to reverse out until you're right at the top menu.
Right at the top.
And we see Connected Flightdeck is the second choice on the right-hand side, so LSK2R. Now, if you click on that...
I'm there already.
Did you want to select the master connection type and set your connection to on?
Master, on, and ready for you.
Okay, so I'll set mine to slave. Now, just before I put my connection to on, this should fail because we haven't configured the to airby up with the correct IP addresses of our relevant computers. But this is by way of showing what would happen if things aren't set up correctly.
Yes.
So I've clicked on for the connection. Actually, there we go. And it says connection error, which is right.
And I get not connected, which is, from reading the forums, it's the most discussed single problem that people have in terms of connecting the flight deck is they will see that error, not connected on the master, and error connection error on the slave.
Yep.
And that's not unknown.
Not at all. So what I'm going to do now on my system is bring up both LogMeIn Hamachi and the Aerosoft Airbus A318/319 configurator. Now that second application you'll find in the directory where you've installed your Airbus A318/319. And once that's loaded up, I select the Other Settings tab. If you want to go to that place as well, Rich, and let me know when you're there.
I am there.
Fantastic. So in LogMeIn Hamachi, under GD3G, you'll see, I guess, my name, followed by my IP address.
I do indeed, yes.
And you want to record my IP address under the Connected Flightdeck area in the configurator where it says your co-pilot.
So 25.112.76.180. Done.
Cool. Okay, so I'm going to put LogMeIn Hamachi away. We put that in the configurator. Now there is, as we've discussed before, no save button here, so you're never really quite sure if it's worked or not.
It's very surreal.
Yeah, so what I suggest is, having entered it, just close the configurator down and then immediately open it up again to see whether or not it has recorded that correctly. And look on my system, and yes, your IP address is correctly recorded. We've already tried to do a connection in the Airbus. We were unable to connect because we had not correctly stated what each other's IP address was. We've set that now. We've got the correct IP addresses set in the configurator. And now what we can do is to try to do that connection again. Just before we do, though, I don't know whether this will work or not, frankly. It wouldn't surprise me that we have to reload the Airbus. But let's try it for now, see what happens, and potentially know that we have to restart the Airbus if this bit does not work.
Okay, so I'm back on board, Connected Flightdeck, set up with master, connection off at the moment. And I think you're right. I think we'll probably have to reboot the Airbus. But if I set my connection to on now.
So you're still set as master, and you're setting your connection to on. Okay, and I will leave my connection on slave, and I will now try to turn my connection on. So the green light has come on for connection, but the connection error still remains. So really you don't know whether that has refreshed or not because there's no indication whether it has failed.
No.
But I think what we need to do now then is to close down FSX, or at least, actually, let's try something else, Rich. Let's try to change the aircraft. I say that, and my FSX has now decided to go black and is no longer responding.
I think we're going to have to shut it down anyway then.
Oh no, tell a lie, it's come back up. So let's try and select a different aircraft. Maybe something like the Trike again.
I'm going to just select the default Baron.
Okey-doke.
Which I've done, and then I'm going to go back to selecting the Airbus just to see if it reloads it all.
Precisely. That's exactly what I'm doing. I don't think it will. I think it still keeps a lot of stuff in memory, but let's see what happens.
Lufthansa. I'm primed with control full stop again for my lurch. It didn't lurch. It didn't do it. The parking brake remained on. Lovely.
Oh.
Right.
So back to the Connected Flightdeck option then on the MCDU, Ridge, if we can.
Yes, I'm here. Connected deck. I've got master connected, connection off at the moment.
So did you want to put your connection on now?
It's on.
This is the way they describe it in the Aerosoft documentation, of course, that the master selects the connection type of master and sets their connection on before the slave tries to do likewise. So my connection type is set to slave, and I'll try to turn my connection on in 3, 2, 1, click.
And we're there. You just need to refresh the aircraft then.
Right.
And then the next things to do are just sync displays and sync ND overlay.
Yep.
And if I go back to a more normal view, hopefully, if I twiddle the knobs on the FDU up here, or the FCU, I should say, you should see screens randomly changing all over the place.
Yeah, between plan, arc, nav, VOR, and so on. Also, because you're the master now, if you move the throttles, I should see the throttles move here.
There we go.
Great.
Moving them.
But if I do it, I think, as we recall from last time, that actually you won't see anything. In fact, I don't see anything either. You are the only one that can control the throttles because you're master.
I can't see anything moving at all.
Yep. So
I think if I'm right, basically what happens is the primary flight controls are just allocated to the master because that's generally axis information, whereas a lot of the switches are just binary, 1, 0, whatever it might be, single integer variables. Look at that. I sound like I know what I'm on about.
It's a scary thought. So just to show that some things do work both ways, what I'll do now is I'll adjust the lighting for the PFD. Do you see that going down and dark?
Yep.
And also for the navigation display?
Yep.
Same thing. Okay, so again for the navigation display, I'll turn on the terrain indicator.
Yep.
And turn up the lighting for the PFD.
I'm not getting
again.
any terrain visual on it, purely out of the fact that it's on plan mode at the moment for me.
Yep, likewise. So just for smiles and grins, what I'm going to do on my system now is I'm going to load cold and dark. We'll see what happens on yours when I do so. So I'm going to aircraft state, load cold and dark.
It's changed me to cold and dark as well.
Excellent. I'll put the batteries on and the
And my
external
batteries
power
are on as well now.
Fantastic.
Another thing that we found with this was in relation to lights, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right. Inconsistency between the switch states.
So I'm going to flick the beacon on and off.
Oh, hang on just a sec, and I will have a look at the overhead. Yes, I can see that.
Right, and the one I can't remember, I think, was it the nav or the strobe we had a problem with? There's the nav.
So nothing's happening here as you're activating the nav and logo button.
All right. And strobe.
Yes, I can see that.
And landing lights.
Yep, that's fine.
Runway turn-off lights.
That's fine.
And then nose.
Yep, that's moving as well.
So, bizarrely, the only one that seems not to be linked in is the nav and logo lights.
Correct. So if I can attempt a quick summary of the points that we're at then. Connected Flightdeck. We were able to connect successfully once we had used the Aerosoft Airbus configurator to correctly identify our relative PC's IP address. We did not need to restart FSX after that. All we needed to do was to reload the Airbus aircraft itself inside of FSX. Once reloaded and taking a look at it, we now know that the master connection is the only one that can operate the throttles and the only one that can operate the joystick and see joystick actuation, certainly on the PFD and on the ECAMs. Also, we know that there are some features that don't seem to synchronize between the Airbus, and the obvious example that we've worked through a few times is the nav and logo switch on the overhead. We know that that's not replicated between the two, but all the other external lights, they seem to replicate just fine. Does that sound about right?
I would just add that it doesn't seem at the moment that we've found anything else that isn't synced.
Correct.
I can't think of any that we've had over the last couple of times when we've flown Connected Flightdeck. I think it's just the lights that we've had problems with. Although, did we not have a problem with the APU as well?
Oh, there's that one time on pushback, wasn't there, where we suffered a problem with the parking brake, you'll recall?
Yes. Don't know if that was a problem with GSX, because you had GSX installed, I did not. But I think the element of that for me is pertinent is if you have a controlling master pilot, if it's a flight control, including the parking brake, I would personally suggest that they are the only one that operates those.
Likewise, because if I remember, there's a synchronizing problem with the parking brake as well. Can you take a look at your parking brake, Rich? And just confirm what state you've currently got.
It is on.
And mine is currently off. So let me switch mine on and let's see if anything happens at your end. So I've now switched it on.
Mine's gone off.
So the state seems to be swapping between the two connected flight decks, but all it's doing is signifying there is a change of state and then changing the state of your parking brake without paying any attention to what state it's currently in. Let me try and activate the switch again. This time I'm going to switch it to off, and then if you can just let us know what you see, please, Rich. So switching off now.
It says it's on now for me.
And it says it's on for you.
Yes.
Okay, and it's off for me. And as I've been switching it off, I've got some strange graphic effects going on, and I realise now it's because I have just driven right through the middle of the terminal and out the other side.
What?
My Airbus.
So I see. There was flickering graphics, and I thought, that'll be something to do with the traffic moving around in Innsbruck. And I've just looked out the window, and because I haven't got collision detection on.
Neither have I now.
There was like a move. Dearie me. What are you like?
So I'm going to hit Shift P just to push back, see if it will push back first of all. Let's see whether or not it will then push you back as well, shall we? Shift P doesn't seem to be working.
No, because I've got my parking brakes on.
Aha. Well, if you take...
You leave your Shift P activated, and I'm going to turn the parking brakes off here.
Okay.
Let's see what happens.
Now, have you've turned your parking brake off?
We're going forwards.
We are.
I've just pressed Shift P, and I'm getting nothing.
I'll press Shift P again, and I'm getting nothing as well.
Now, we've had it working before.
We have. And when you activated the parking brake and turned yours off, mine stayed off. That's a rather bizarre thing, isn't it?
So I've just turned it back on.
And it's stopping.
And it stopped.
Yep. And now we're going backwards. I'm going backwards.
Whoa, I'm going backwards quite quickly as well. Faster than the normal Shift P.
Maybe because
I'm going back quite scarily fast here.
Good. That's what we like to see. Oh, you've stopped. Oh, no, we're going again.
What's V1 in reverse? Take off safety speed going backwards.
It's ah! Oh, that's what the inside of a terminal looks like in Austria. That's interesting.
I'm not going there then, if that's all they get.
Exactly. It's rubbish. So we're almost.
I think it's an interesting effect with the scenery. I also appear to be quite high. There we go. My parking brakes are on.
And I'm still going back. Oh, no, I've stopped now.
I've just pressed Shift P to stop the pushback.
Yep.
How bizarre.
Isn't that? So there's an odd disconnect in the parking brake status between our two aircraft.
So is your parking brake off?
My parking brake is currently off, yes.
And my parking brake's on. You try Shift P.
Shift P. Nothing happens.
Right. Let me try Shift P. Nothing happens, yet it was a minute ago. Oh, no, there we go. So I'm in control of the Shift P,
now. Yep.
But my parking brakes are still on. Can you press, put your parking brake on?
Are you sure? Because remember what happened the last time?
I'm sure. I'm feeling brave.
Okay, parking brakes on.
Mine's still off and we're still moving. Mine's gone off now. We're still moving.
And my screen has just gone black.
Really?
Yeah.
So I think
now
that's
it's come back again.
I think that's a switch we have to be very careful with, is the parking brake and because my parking brake's off at the minute and we're moving slowly forwards.
Yep.
Put my parking brake on and we stop again. So my parking brake's obviously functioning, but we have to be careful with the parking brake and the pushback. And one of the other things we found as well is that although it's pertinent to us, because only one of us has GSX, you can't use the GSX pushback.
Yeah, that's correct, because we did a somersaulting.
Have you got GSX running at the moment?
No.
Right. Because what I might do... ground services. No, we're up and running. I'd need to go to the checklist.
Do you want to stop us before we hit the terminal again, Rich?
Are we moving?
Oh, yeah.
Ah!
And you need to put the parking brake on because you're master. I think that's what
I've put the parking brake on just.
Super. So I think that's what we've discovered here, that really, although the slave can mess around with the parking brake, don't do that. Just let the master do the parking brake.
Yes, I think my considerations at this point would be if it's a control that involves physical movement of the aircraft, so parking brake, flight controls, throttles, that all should be or is best controlled by the master.
Only, yes, absolutely.
If it's anything that's a system, then you can both operate it, so the MCDU, etc. But I think fundamentally my advice at this point would be if it's anything that involves the movement of the aircraft, so parking brake, pushback, flight controls, throttles, just leave that to the master system. Anything else, from what I can gather, is fine for both to use.
Yeah.
Although with the lights, we've seen that there is a slight disconnect with a couple of them.
So having said all that, it'd be interesting to see if Hotfix 1.3 echo fixes any of the anomalies that we found with the standard install, which we've now successfully done and connected. So shall we try to do that?
Can I just quickly ask what the state of your APU is on the overhead?
Checking now. The APU is showing master switch is on, the start is showing as available, and the APU bleed is on.
That's interesting, because we had an issue with that before. But it's exactly the same now, because I turned the APU on whilst we were crashing.
Okay, good to know.
So should we leave it at that? And then what we can do is we can have a go at breaking it again by installing a hotfix and see if we can sort of get through that. How does that sound?
Sounds good.